Hi, I'm about to start today's presentation titled Automated Craptioning. And it might be hard to read or see, but under the title, it says, What Did They Say? Intentionally misspelled, so it reflects craptioning. Basically, bad captions. Next slide, please. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Howard Rosenblum. I am the CEO of NAD, the National Association of the Deaf. I am also the Director of Legal Services. I have two major responsibilities, one as the CEO of NAD, and second, I also oversee legal and policy issues for NAD. Let's go back a slide. On this slide, you can see an image of Spock from Star Trek, the original series. The caption says, Sobbing mathematically. This is one of many funny examples of bad captioning. Next slide. We will be talking about legal mandates for captioning with a brief overview of them. Next slide, please. Next. So, what laws require captioning? The Rehabilitation Act of 1973, way back when. When that was passed, it had a number of different stipulations. One of those is Section 504. That focuses on the federal government and any entity who receives federal funding. This is the first disability rights law in America, and perhaps the world, requiring access be provided for deaf and hard of hearing that will be equal to any other people who get access, and this included captioning. Next is the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Keep in mind that the Rehabilitation Act is only for federal agencies and those who receive federal grants. The ADA has a broader scope that applies to those who aren't a federal agency and those who do not receive federal funding. Sometimes there is an overlap. An agency may be covered under the ADA and receive federal funding. These types of agencies are liable for complying with both acts. The ADA consists of several sections known as titles, starting with Title I, which applies to employment. We will not be covering this section at all today. Title II applies to state and local entities. So any college and university that is run by the state or local government, or is a part of the state and local government, is obligated to adhere to Title II of the ADA. Colleges and universities who are private and are not for profit and also not associated with state and local government are obligated to adhere to Title III of the ADA. Regardless the budget size, from small to large budgets, or not-for-profit or for-profit status, these must all comply with Title III. Many will often cite the minimum 15 employees threshold in the ADA, but this only applies in Title I, meaning that any employers with 15 or less employees do not have to comply with Title I. Title II and Title III of the ADA applies and covers all colleges and universities, regardless if they are private or public, and regardless of the number of employees. Next is the Telecommunications Act of 1996. This law mandates captioning to be provided on television shows, and this is important to know if you're going to be showing any television programming. It should already be captioned since 1996 forward. Captioning is to be provided on 100% of all programming by 2006, and if a pre-1996 show is re-aired, it should now be captioned. Really, by now, almost everything on television is captioned with very few exceptions. Last but not least is the CVAA. This acronym stands for Communication and Video Accessibility Act of 2010. The law recognized that the Telecommunications Act was outdated as it applied to television only, but the CVAA applied to media streamed on the internet. Now, the CVAA does not cover everything on the internet. The ADA is still used for this. However, the CVAA gives the FCC jurisdiction over captioning of any television programming or movies shown on television as well as streamed on the internet. These are now covered by the CVAA. We will cover the difference between both. Next slide, please. Applying the law. Laws have different sections. Sometimes we also have to wait to see how real life plays out in order to determine how laws can be applied. This slide will address that. Applying the law for captioning access. The first bullet point is NAD versus Netflix. In this case, the NAD sued Netflix. I'm not sure how many of you remember way back when, in order to watch a Netflix movie, you would receive a DVD in the mail. After watching the movie, one would have to return the DVD before being sent another one. Then the service changed to a streaming model. Netflix then refused to provide captions via the streaming service. NAD reached out and suggested to Netflix they provide captioning via the streaming service. Keep in mind, only about 10% of the content streamed was captioned. After all this back and forth and their refusal, NAD filed a complaint to find out if we could argue that the ADA did apply to any provision of content by a Title III covered entity via the internet. This was filed in Massachusetts. It was historic. The first ever Internet Service ADA case. Well, we won. Then we developed an agreement with Netflix to reach 100% captioning of programming within a certain timeline. After that, we approached Hulu, Amazon, and Vudu, and let them know that we could do this the friendly way, or we could take this to court too. The overwhelming consensus was to provide captioning moving forward. We also collaborated with others like Google and many others in order to make sure that all programming be captioned. Everyone agreed. As a result, most streaming is now captioned, and there is some content that isn't, but we chased them down to make sure that the entire streaming experience is accessible. We also filed a complaint against Harvard and MIT. The reasoning was, they have a lot of video content on their websites or the web. We asked them to make all of their videos accessible for their college or university students. Plus, for their MOOCs, massive online open courses like edX by Harvard and MIT. At that time, they were not captioned. We kept prodding and reminding them, and they said they didn't need to provide captioning for online content. We filed a complaint in order to force compliance, using the same legal standard. Now, no caption-specific standards existed in the ADA at that time, thus we referenced WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. They had been developed and have been improved upon over time. Initially, there was a 1.0 iteration and then a 1.2, and currently we are on version 2.1, and very soon it'll be version 2.2. Notice the AA after the 2.1. This reflects a more robust section has been added. Prior to, it was 2.1 single A. Now it shows double A, which defines and requires accuracy and sets standards that synchronicity must be maintained. In other words, the captions must match the timing of the spoken portions without huge delays. Completeness has to be ensured to make sure all of the information is there and there isn't anything missing. It also stipulates placement to make sure that it isn't on a vital part of the screen. And if there is something important going on at the bottom of the screen, that the captions should be at the top of the screen. Go back a slide. The final bullet point. NAD also filed a complaint against Berkeley for the same issue as with Harvard and MIT through the Department of Justice for different legal reasons. This case just came to an end. The DOJ settled with Berkeley with an agreement that their online content must be captioned and accessible. Next slide. So, what are the standards for captioning? Next slide. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is responsible for setting the standards for captions on television. They have 4 requirements. Captions must be accurate, synchronous, complete, and have proper placement. As I just described, accurate, meaning captions must match the spoken words in the dialogue and any other audio or important sounds that may be happening. Captions need to be synchronous, meaning captions must coincide with their corresponding spoken words. And there are 2 different types. Captions added in post-production can be closely aligned with the spoken dialogue. But for live broadcasts, captions do lag behind what has been spoken, so a delay does exist. The goal is always to have a minimal delay. Completeness, meaning that captions must capture the entirety of a television show or program, from beginning to end, without truncating the captions at the tail end of a program. Proper placement, meaning that captions should not block important on-screen information. If there's information at the bottom of the screen, then the captions should be placed at the top of the screen or elsewhere. Next slide, please. What are the mandated standards for captioning? Currently, we don't have exact standards. NAD and many other organizations have petitioned the FCC asking them to please set metrics to define accurate captioning. Currently, nothing exists. There isn't an exact science for captions, but people are developing models for it. Gallaudet is one group. Another group is called MITRE. They are running studies. Accuracy doesn't just mean counting how many wrong words there were, which words were missing or wrong. As you see on the slide, some words have more importance than others, and that affects the weight and understanding of the sentence that was spoken. For example, I am hitting the ball, or I am hitting ball, where the was omitted. The grammar is wrong, but an understanding can still be gleaned from the sentence. Or if you have a sentence like, I am not hitting the ball versus I am hitting the ball, this time the omitted word was not, and that changes the entire meaning of the sentence. Just one word, but the whole meaning of the sentence was changed, whereas in the previous sentence, missing a word may not change the meaning too much. So, one word can be very vital to the sentence.
How is it that we define accurate captioning? Like I mentioned, any pre-recorded content should be 100% accurate. You have plenty of time to correct any errors from an automatic transcript. There are no metrics yet for live captioning. That means either a human captioner or ASR. CART, which is Communication Access Real-Time Translation, means that a human is captioning. ASR is Automated Speech Recognition, done by artificial intelligence. So, CART is done by a human, ASR is done by a computer. Now, current trends are that ASR first transcribes and then a human becomes involved to fix and repair. ASR begins and a human goes in to make the correction. So we want to clarify between the two and the types of accuracy. Now, those companies who provide services in both of these realms claim 95 or even 99% accuracy. But how true is that? We don't have metrics yet. So how do we measure and ensure 95, 90, 99% accuracy? This is an ongoing problem in this realm. Craptioning and what to do. What is it that causes bad captioning? Whether it is CART or ASR, either one gets worse depending on these factors. Bad audio quality. A human or a computer will struggle to clearly understand what is being spoken. Unclear speech, such as with different accents and dialects. If someone's from a different country than the person listening, it may be difficult to understand and errors will be made. Sometimes there are classes at the university level, for example, where vocabulary is unique to that field. It could be in the sciences, literature, or art. There are terms that are unique to that field. So whether it's a human CART transcriber or ASR, they may struggle with accuracy in those instances. Proper nouns, such as names, restaurants, or locations, buildings. The person typing or ASR may not be familiar with a particular regional area or a person's name and be completely unaware of how to spell it correctly. Let's say there are multiple speakers talking simultaneously, overlapping each other. In that instance, neither a computer or a human captioner can process overlapping speech. It's hard to isolate one phrase of speech from multiple speakers at the same time. So turn taking is critical. Background noise is a major factor. If there's a lot of background noise, it can affect the quality of captions. A human can disregard some of those background noise and better attend to what's being spoken, but either way, the quality of the captions and the accuracy will suffer. Let's say the person speaking, let's put this in a college setting. Let's say that there is a microphone being used, but when the person speaking walks away from the microphone, let's say to write on a whiteboard, then the audio will cut out and the captions will be missed. Now there may be a lapel mic that can be worn, but sometimes the movement and noise from that will cause a conflict, whether it is static or feedback or breaks in the audio. So the captioning will lack accuracy there. Often, university or college education checks off all of these issues. All of these issues happen in classroom environments. So it is a big problem. Next slide. Now, what can we do to defend against craptioning? For universities and college, it's essential to get accurate captioning so that students can truly understand and follow the course content. Vocabulary is critical for each class. It's important for tests, important in terms of the grades a student makes, and to get a full understanding of the profession being studied. Terminology is critical to the remainder of that student's career. So if vocabulary starts off incorrectly, it sets the student off on the wrong foot. And that's true for both ASR and CART. And for both of these, something can be done to mitigate errors. If you know that will be a medical or legal class or computer technology class, a library or dictionary of terminology related to that field can be added to the captioning system to give it a better chance of understanding the vocabulary being spoken. Now, not everything in the world can be put into a singular system. Maybe in the future it can. But for now, specific vocabulary to a topic for a particular event or class can be added. In my perspective, if ASR is used, errors will be made, and a human needs to back that up and clean up those errors. Human involvement is simply essential to the process. It's optimal to honor the student's preferred methods. Some prefer CART, some prefer ASR, and they have those preferences for different reasons. CART has a greater delay in time, although it's often more accurate, not always. ASR has less of a delay, but often has greater numbers of errors. Oftentimes, students or professors may say they like ASR because they may have some hearing with their hearing levels, and they use ASR as a support, and they follow along very closely with what they're hearing. Where if they have some hearing and they're wanting to follow along with CART, the delay is so great, it isn't as beneficial. So some people are perfectly accepting of ASR, and they understand those errors. If they see an error in the ASR, they can hear enough to make sense of it, and they prefer not to use CART. There are other people who rely heavily on the captioning, and so they may prefer CART because they value the accuracy over the time lag. So some prefer one over the other, and those preferences must be honored. Check in with the student. Ask them what it is they prefer. If you honor their preference, you will have less back and forth and less complaints as time goes on. Next slide, please. So the bottom line is, if institutions are only concerned with saving money, they want to avoid spending their funds on quality captions, then that institution is put at risk of liability. Let's say a student receives a bad grade, they can blame the school for lack of quality captions. They have challenged the provision of quality services, and it can become a point of contention and a problem that the university would then need to solve. However, if quality captions are provided according to that student's request, then they were given what they were wanted. Therefore, the institution cannot be blamed for the grade they got because their wishes were followed. So there's less argument for the student to then challenge when they have any issues or weaknesses in their grade. Colleges and universities should have a way to measure their own quality assurance. Checking in with the student and staff. If you contract with a company that provides CART or some type of automated speech recognition, check in from time to time. Ask for a copy of their caption files so that you can compare it against the original recording of certain classes as the teacher allows. And ensure the captioning is accurate. If it is not, at that point, you can make a decision to continue contracting with the company or revoke that contract and go through another RFP. Now, when you get those bids, don't just choose the cheapest bid. You want to be able to clearly and fully see the captioning quality. That responsibility lies on the institution to ensure quality, and that includes periodic quality checks. That doesn't mean you need to go into the class every single day. Just do periodic quality assurance, and that is what we at NAD recommend. Students do have an opportunity to make a complaint about their quality of service if they feel like it is not good. So this quality assurance will verify the services that are being provided or not being provided. So it's a nice agreement to have between the institution and the student, that there are measures in place, not precise percentages, but general measurements of the quality of services the student is receiving.